Hello everybody, welcome to another Viva-Mundo webinar. Today we are heading all the way over to the USA, I wish I was there in person, but unfortunately not. We're doing it virtually again today to University of Kentucky. They will be here to answer all your questions. Please do ask questions. We always welcome it with our webinars. We do have a Q&A box just at the bottom of your screen, which you'll be able to ask any questions throughout the webinar, which we'll get to right at the very end. A little bit about Viva-Mundo and what we do. We are essentially here to give advice on study abroad, visa advice, course advice, even location advice, and that is what we are here to do today. So I'm going to hand you over to the wonderful Hayley, who will be able to introduce you to your host today.
All right, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to talking to you all and telling you a little bit about the University of Kentucky and a couple specific programs we have in addition to just successful communication in general with your program of interest, and just a few communication tips for how to properly email and communicate with the program that you're interested in. So before we begin, I will show you all just where Kentucky is located in general. For those of you who don't know, we are east, south, central region of the United States, and University of Kentucky is almost in the middle of the state. We're located in Lexington, Kentucky, and we also have an interactive map that we can drop in the chat for those of you who are interested in touring around virtually campus. You can look around at all the buildings we have and just get a feel for what it looks like there. So a little bit about our programs. We have over 90 graduate programs. We will also drop a link in the chat to this page on our website where you can feel free to explore some of those programs that we offer. This is only a few. Here's the rest of them. So like I said, we have a lot of programs, a lot of opportunities here. This is a picture of our university seal right here. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers that we have today. So first speaking will be Dr. Brett Spear. He served as the Director of Graduate Studies in Integrated Biomedical Sciences for a number of years. And he was also named the William B. Sturgill Award recipient in 2019 for outstanding contributions to graduate education at UK. He also holds a PhD in immunology from the University of Pennsylvania and was a postdoctoral researcher in molecular biology at Princeton University. And after Dr. Brett Spear, we have Dr. Catherine Thompson, who is the Director of Graduate Studies in Statistics, and she has taught at the University of Kentucky since 2013. She holds a BS in biology and a BS in mathematics from the University of Kentucky, and an MS and PhD in statistics from the Ohio State University. And we're very excited to have both of them here today to speak a little bit about their programs and to also answer any of the questions that you all might have. Dr. Spear, you can take it away.
Great. Well, thanks, Haley. And welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk with you about the IBS, or Integrated Biomedical Sciences program. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a short overview of the program itself, just to tell you a little bit about some of the research that goes on in our College of Medicine. And then I'll tell you some details that are maybe specific to the program, but also I think the comments will be very general. And I think Dr. Thompson will have some general comments as well. So the IBS program, really, it's a little bit unusual. It's actually a gateway to 6 basic science departments in our College of Medicine, and you can see those outlined here. So students that want to come in and get a PhD in biomedical sciences in our College of Medicine, they actually apply to the Integrated Biomedical Sciences program. They don't apply to individual programs. So all the students come into IBS, and during that first year in the program, all the students take the same courses. So we have the biochemistry, genetics, physiology, so on and so forth. And then they do rotations where they spend 7 weeks in a different faculty member's lab to sort of see what that research is like. So over the course of that first year, they do 4 different rotations. And at the end of that year, they choose a lab where they're going to do their PhD research. And I just listed here those different departments. So we have microbiology, immunology, molecular genetics. That's actually the department that I'm in. I do molecular genetics research. I actually study liver cancer using mouse models. So that's what I do when I'm not doing other things. But we also have neurosciences, physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, nutritional sciences, and then toxin cancer biology. And I think one nice thing about this program is that, you know, if you're interested in biomedical research, but you're not exactly sure what you want, you know, what specific area that you want to go into, you know, this program gives you a chance. It gives you a year to sort of explore different options. And then during that year, hopefully you'll find your passion, you'll find the area that you want to go into. So that helps students that aren't exactly sure what they want to do. But if students come in and they really know that they want to go into physiology, then they can do their rotations in the physiology department. So our goal is to try to be as flexible as possible to try to accommodate, you know, the needs of the students that are interested in the kind of research that we're doing. So I think you'll find too that a lot of different medical schools use this kind of integrated program as well. So it's certainly not unique to UK, but it's really been very beneficial to us, and I think it's been beneficial to the students as well. So Haley, if you can move to the next slide. So, you know, we're going to hear a lot about communication today. You've already heard a little bit, and communication is so important. And it's going to be a challenge too, especially for international students that are going to be trying to communicate. So I want to talk about a few things that, you know, based on my experiences. One of them is there's a lot of information on the web. Haley's already brought that up. So look at the information to learn about the program, to learn about the graduate school, and importantly, check the FAQ section of our website before asking questions, okay? Now, you can email us and ask a question like, what is the stipend, or our GRE scores required? But you can find a lot of that information in our FAQ page, and it's just a little bit more professional if you asking questions that are really important questions and not simply asking a question that is already very readily available. It shows it shows us that you're really doing your homework and that you're really investigating our program. So check the FAQs. For us, and again, I don't know how this is for all the departments, but for us, communicate with the Director of Graduate Studies. That person is listed on our website. We see things where a lot of times students may email to different faculty members individually, and normally if those faculty members get that information, they're going to simply send that information to the DGS, because the DGS is the person who's responsible for interacting with prospective students. So any communication, send them to the DGS. And it's really important the types of questions that you ask, you know, how you ask the questions, you know, ask the right questions and be specific so that the answers you get are going to be meaningful, right? So for example, how many of the students entering your program are international students, right? I'll tell you a little bit more details about our program, but you know, if you have, if a program accepts say 30 students a year, and half of those students are international students, versus say a program that is bringing in 30 students and only 2 or 3 are international students, that might be important information for you to have to decide if you're going to pursue you know, a PhD or a graduate education in that program. So try to be as specific as you can. Another question, you know, do you have a minimum GPA? Are GRE scores required? Or is research experience required? So, you know, ask the kinds of questions that so that the answers that you get can help inform your decision whether or not you're going to apply to that program, whether or not you have the qualifications, or you're going to be competitive for a place in that program. So I think that's a really important thing. I know from my experience at DGS, sometimes we get really vague questions, and you know, it's really hard to answer those questions. And even if I answer the question in a vague way, it's probably not going to be real informative to the student. So keep that in mind. You know, so again, a challenge for international students, you know, communication, email is obviously the way to go. You can always offer to talk via phone or a Zoom meeting. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd like to have a Zoom meeting or I'd like to talk to you, because we get a lot of interest from international applicants and it's really not possible. But, you know, you can always make that offer. And if a DGS wants to, talk to you more about the program or talk to you a little bit more about you as your qualifications, then that'd be fine. So it's okay to ask, but I wouldn't, say I'd like to talk to you on the phone. And, getting back to this point about FAQs, use the university website and individual faculty websites for information. There's a lot of information there. You shouldn't necessarily just look at the program, but you should look more about UK and even, what life is like in Lexington. These are all going to be important issues for you as you're looking at graduate programs. And so what not to do. As I said earlier, don't communicate directly with faculty. That's probably not going to be efficient use of your time. Don't be extreme in what you're saying. For example, don't email to a faculty member and say, I've wanted to work with you all my life. Your research is so exciting to me. Maybe what you're saying is true, but as I said earlier, sometimes faculty members will forward to me emails they get from international students. And it's not that uncommon for me to get 6 or 7 faculty member forwarding an email for a student, and for every single faculty member, the student says, my desire, my goal in life is to work in your lab. I just love your research. And when you see that from 6 or 7 faculty, you get a little suspicious. So be honest. Don't overdo it. Don't pester the DGS. DGSs are busy people. You're emailing them. You have an interest. You want an answer, but you have to be patient as well. I would say that if you send an email, I would wait at least a week before, if you don't hear anything, wait a week before sending a second email. And again, be polite in that email. Don't say, why haven't you responded to my email? Tell them that you're interested, and when you have a chance, please let me know. And maybe a week before the 3rd. So don't pester. That doesn't help. DGSs, they're responsible. They want to respond to your emails, but they have other responsibilities as well. So try to be patient. The other thing, we get a lot of people requesting that an application for an application fee waiver. Individual programs cannot provide a fee waiver. That's a question for the graduate school, so you have to request that from the graduate school. So it's not helpful to ask individual programs because we don't have the we're not, it's not our decision for that. So a couple of things with your communication: what you want to do, what you don't. Haley, if we can go to the next slide. So one of the things in our College of Medicine is that all of our funding for our students, and all of our students are funded by research assistants or RA positions, okay? And these RA positions, they can come from a couple of sources. Maybe departments will provide money for graduate students, and there's no restrictions. That can be for domestic or international students. Faculty get research grants, and they can pay students off of those research grants. And again, whether they're international or US citizens, no restrictions. Many of our faculty, many of the research here is supported by training grants from the National Institutes of Health. Those are restricted to US citizens or permanent residents. So that, restricts the number of, say, international students that we bring in. There are individual fellowships, and some, but not all, have citizenship requirements. And then some students come in with scholarships from your government, but that can be complicated because in our program, we offer a stipend of $26,000. And if your government, say, offers $20,000, we are required to make up that additional money. So scholarships from your government can be helpful, but it can get complicated. We do not have teaching assistant positions in our College of Medicine. All of our College of Medicine students, other than PhDs, are medical students, okay? So if you're interested in a program or you want to get some teaching experience, you may look at other programs where you can actually have a TA position to gain some teaching experience. So all of our students are funded by research assistant positions. Okay, Haley, next slide. So what about the application process itself? Okay, for our program, the due date is January 1st. And again, different programs have different due dates, so it's important to look at that. Is it helpful to apply early? And the answer is Well, sort of, okay. Faculty are, let me tell you a little bit about our program. So we have 8 faculty members who comprise our admissions committee. So when we get an application that comes in, we have 8 different faculty members who actually look at those applications. So, if a person applies early, it shows that that person really is on the ball, and that's always a good sign, right? But to be honest, it's not until we do get applications that start coming in September, sometimes October. So they do come in early, but we don't really get highly involved with reviewing applications until November, okay? And things get really pick up after in January, because that's when the deadline is. So it doesn't hurt to apply early, but I don't think it's a real important thing. An important question, is the due date firm or is there flexibility? And I don't know if it's not necessarily firm, okay? Now there are some issues with international students, because if we are interested in an international student, there's visa and a lot of issues that have to be taken care of. So we have more flexibility with domestic students in terms of late applications. But if we get an application, let's say a student in the middle of January applies, and sometimes a student will ask me, so it's after the deadline, can I apply? And I might say, well, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? And if the student looks like they're really promising, we may look at that student, okay? So, but the likelihood that your application will be reviewed, it's not for certain, and the likelihood goes down a little bit. If you apply before January 1st, we will review your application, okay? So there is some flexibility, but you're best off to get your application in by the deadline. And as I mentioned, who reviews the application? We have a group of 8 faculty who review all the applications. Are all the applications reviewed by the committee? All of our domestic applications are reviewed by the committee, or international students that are in the United States. We get a large number of international applicants, and actually the DGS and the director of the program will pre-screen those applications, because a number of those applications just don't reach the requirements that are necessary for the program. And so those students are simply not going to be competitive. So there are a number of international applicants that do not get the full committee review, but if they meet sort of the minimal criteria for our program, they will be reviewed by that committee of 8 people. Our program does not require GRE scores, so that's not required. It varies from program to program at the University of Kentucky, so you should look into that. We have found that for our program that GRE scores are not a predictor of success in graduate school, so we do not require it. But what if you've taken the GRE exam? Well, you can report it, and if you get really good GRE scores, even though we don't require it, there may be 1 or 2 faculty members on our committee that say, hey, these are really good GRE scores. I think this might be, a good sign. So if you have taken the GRE exam and you have really good scores, you can put them in. If you took the GRE exam and let's say your scores aren't so good and it's not going to help your application, I wouldn't put them in, okay? So it's up to you, but it is not required, and so don't feel like you have to have them. The process itself, a little bit more about the process itself. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for grades, of course, right? But again, it's not just the overall GPA, okay? So we're interested in the courses you've taken. What type of courses have you taken that are relevant to biomedical research? Chemistry courses, organic chemistry, cell biology, molecular biology. So it's not just overall, it's the courses. What about the grades in those science courses? Okay, so if you've taken some rigorous courses and you're getting good grades in rigorous courses, that's more important than maybe good grades in courses that are less rigorous. And trajectory. So what do I mean by trajectory? Well, we might have 2 students that come in with a 3.0, but let's say this one student had a 3.0 their first year in college, 3.0, 3.0, 3.0. So they're steady, and that's fine, okay? But sometimes we'll get applicants where, maybe that first year they get a 2.0, okay? Maybe they struggle a little bit. Maybe going to school was, there were a lot of, new things. There was a lot of challenges. They start off a little bit low, and then the second year their GPA goes up a little bit, and then the third year goes up, and maybe the fourth year, by the time they're graduating, they're getting a 4.0. It's like this student, they're growing, they're for whatever reason, they're becoming more dedicated to what they're doing. They like what they're doing. So a student that shows a positive trajectory, that can be a good sign. So we just don't look at the GPA, we look at a lot of little nuances of those grades that you've taken. Letters of reference. 3 are required for our program, and we will look at 3. Some students might think, well, if 3 are good, 4 will be better. And some students might say 10 are better, okay? 10 aren't better, okay? We have a lot of applications to review. 3 letters are important. You make sure that the people who have agreed to send, write letters for you. And I encourage students to say, hey, if you ask a person to write you a letter of reference, say, would you be willing to write me a strong letter of reference, okay? And if they're not, then that letter of reference might not help you, okay? Your personal statement, this is really important, okay? Have others read your letter or your statement and edit it if necessary. What you might be putting on paper and what you think you're saying isn't necessarily what comes across with those written words. So make sure other people read what you have and take a look at it. And I would say a lot of our students don't put a lot of effort into their personal statement. And we read that. We want to know what you really are interested in for graduate school. So make sure you take your time to write it well, have others edit it to make sure that it's written well and that people that are going to be reading it understand what you're trying to say, okay? That's maybe the most important information I'll try to give you today. Okay. What about research experience? It's not required, but it can be helpful. So, that can be an important thing as well. Why is it helpful? Well, biomedical research and any type of PhD research is going to be challenging. And if you've already had some research and you've gone through that experience and you say, hey, I know this is tough, I know this is challenging, but I still want to do it. That's important for us to know. So these are sort of the 4 things we look at. A lot of times students will say, what is the most important of these 4? And I say, everything. Like I said, we have 8 people on our committee. One person on that committee might say, I think the grades are most important. Another person might say the statement is most important. So different members of our committee prioritize these things, these issues differently. For me, I always feel like the letters of reference are what I really focus on. My experience looking at a lot of application is that in seeing students through our program, the students that had strong letters of recommendation, to me, I don't have data for this, seem to be the ones that are going to be most successful. So everything's important, so take everything seriously. And then finally, what are we really looking for? So we're trying to read between the lines in your application. And one of the things is passion. The most important thing for anything you're going to do in life, but especially in graduate school, is you have to be passionate about it. There's going to be times in graduate school where you're having a blast and everything's fun. And there's going to be times when you're going to really be frustrated and you're going to want to give up. So if you have passion and you really love what you do, and you're going to get through those tough times. Your ability, are you going to have the skills to succeed? And again, that's what we're trying to read in your application. We're investing a lot in you, and we want to make sure that we have a good investment here, okay? And then the final one, and this is a little bit hard, are you the type of student that we feel like we can help, with your successes, okay? And again, that's a little bit vague, I know, but I think the people on our committee understand the culture of our graduate school and our graduate program. And we can try to, get the sense for the type of student that we think is going to be successful in our program. So these are the things we're really trying to look for when we're reviewing applications and choosing people for our program. So I think that's pretty much where I want to stop. And I know we'll have some Q&A at the end. So hopefully I'll be happy to answer questions as well. But I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Thompson.
All right, thank you so much. So I am Katie Thompson. I'm the Director of Graduate Studies in the Department of Statistics at UK. So we're the Dr. Bing Chang Department of Statistics. And I want to first echo everything that Dr. Spear said. It is so true. I also have some general advice sort of lined up for STEM applications, as well as I think there will be a lot here for other fields too. And then some more program and statistics kind of field specific stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So I actually want to start right where Dr. Spear finished off, which is program fit. And this comes up a lot for us in particular, because statistics graduate education, I would say, actually builds more off of undergraduate math coursework than undergraduate statistics coursework. And so we're in kind of a different spot as a graduate program. So one of the questions I often get asked by applicants is, the difference between going to grad school in math, applied math, statistics, data science, data analytics, and biostatistics as well. So there are some things that you can look at if you're comparing graduate programs, even graduate programs with the same name, that are helpful. So in statistics, I always ask people, do you like math? Do you like calculus? And do you enjoy applications or have a second interest area, which might be a hard science, it might be psychology, it might be finance, something like that. The last one I ask students is, do you enjoy programming? Because often we are actually writing code to perform analysis and implement statistical methods. And the programming part of that is very important. So if you start to look at those things and kind of pick out what you like and what you enjoy most, that can help as you're looking at programs' websites to figure out if a program is actually a good fit for you. So if you're looking at graduate schools and you really enjoy programming and you look at a statistics graduate program website, and in a year and a half, 2 years of coursework, you see one programming course, that might be a good indication that that program is a little bit more theoretically focused or in another area. If you look at a website and you see 6 programming courses, that might be a good indication it's a good fit for you. So I think thinking about what you do want in a graduate program can be really helpful on the front end. So, and the pictures here are actually pictures of our stats students. So there's some of them working on an application area project. All right, so if we go to the next slide, the next thing I thought of as I started thinking about fit for you all was, how do you know when you look at a program whether you're even interested enough to email a director of graduate studies? And so there are some things that came to mind that I talked to a lot of prospective students about that I thought might be helpful. So the first one is, if you know you're interested in a master's level versus a doctoral level program that involves research, that can be a very distinguishing factor. There are some programs that are master's programs where there is no option to continue in a PhD, called terminal master's degrees. There are some master's programs that lead into a PhD. We actually have one of those. I'll show you on the next slide. And there are some programs that are just straight PhD programs. So kind of knowing what you're interested in, and if you're not sure, knowing how to keep your options open can be super helpful. For our students, we have students who graduate both with master's degrees and doctoral degrees and get fantastic jobs out of either program. It's really just whatever is best for them. Second thing I look at is program requirements, or the prerequisite requirements, which Dr. Spear mentioned as well. We do require the GRE score. I actually have our program requirements, I think, on the next slide. But for now, just knowing what the program requirements are can tell you a little bit more about what that program is going to expect you to know before you start, which can be really helpful if you're trying to figure out where you are going to be most successful. So if you're looking at a program and they require all of the math you've ever had, plus a little bit more for statistics, may or may not be the best place to start, versus a program that you look at all of the requirements on the math side and you say, yes, I have all of those, I'm comfortable with those. So that can be a good indicator of if you're going to be successful in that program. The coursework of the program we talked about a little bit already. I find that to be pretty helpful for students to look through and see what the program focus is. Especially for us, we've got statistics floating around with data science, biostatistics, lots of fields kind of overlapping. And so the program coursework can help distinguish graduate programs. The next one is highly variable, even within the field of programs named statistics, coursework and research balance. Because students for us are coming from all sorts of majors. I've had everything from math majors, undergrad stats majors, physics, computer science. We had a psych major. Looking at how much coursework versus research balance there is can be really helpful for doctoral programs. we are pretty coursework heavy, but that's because we don't expect students to know as much statistics right when they start. We want them to be very, very interested and really convinced that statistics is what they want to do when they go into a career. But also we want them to have really strong math backgrounds. And so we'd rather you come in with a really strong math background and learn the statistics from us than trying to mesh things together. So that can be really program specific, but also good to look at. As you're looking at web pages, they typically, or at least at UK, the graduate bulletin has all of the coursework requirements listed out. So you can see for any program you're interested in what that balance looks like. Program web pages are the second place that are super helpful for that. Funding opportunities are a very big deal. For our program in particular, we fund virtually almost all of our MS and PhD students with TA-ships and research assistantships. And I'll have some questions that can help on the communication side later on for that. So definitely just knowing program to program, which programs have funding opportunities associated versus which ones don't can be super helpful. Even within our department, our Master of Science program, we offer funding opportunities for. We also have an online Master of Applied Statistics, which there are no funding opportunities for. So looking at program web pages will help you distinguish those things. The last one I cannot say enough, I would say atmosphere. If there is any way to visit, whether that be virtually, last year our department actually started running virtual visits where we had either I hopped on Zoom or had current students hop on Zoom and just answer questions from prospective students just to get a sense of what it's like to really be in Kentucky in the department. If there's anything you can do to get a sense of that, that is excellent. I think it goes, in terms of looking at your likelihood of success in a program, I think it's crucial to consider this, but it's also, I would say, one of the harder things for me to pick out from a website. So if you can get a sense of whether or not everything outside of the coursework and lab work is going to be a good fit, that will be super helpful as well. So that's kind of like, if I could go back and tell the me who applied to grad school straight out of undergrad what to look for, that is what I would have told past me. So now the question kind of becomes, well, how does that interplay with statistics program and also communication with DGSs, Directors of Graduate Studies? So on the next slide, let's talk about, just for our program, it's a little easier to be more specific. So for instance, for us, we have 3 graduate programs, a graduate certificate in applied statistics, an online program that's 4 courses, a Master of Applied Statistics, and then a different master's degree that feeds into our doctoral program. So this is what I mean by looking at program requirements. The Master of Applied Statistics requires 2 semesters of calculus, differential and integral calculus, in case you're in a place where the semesters don't line up with what we have at UK. Whereas our other program, our Master of Science and doctoral degree, requires multivariable calculus, which at UK is 3 semesters, and a linear algebra course. So if you're between 2 programs and you look at the website and realize you don't have multivariable calculus, that helps you know that you want to look more at the Master of Applied Statistics and ask your questions about that. So we'll go to the next slide. This is another kind of look into our first program with the master's and PhD. This is one of those things that I think is hard to get off of a website, but this is kind of the program structure for us. So because statistics programs have majors from all over, we often have students come in not knowing if they want a master's level statistics position or a doctoral level statistics position. So when we consider applications, everybody for first year applications is in the same pot, whether they're interested in the PhD or interested in the master's degree. We do want you to use that personal statement to tell us that you're interested in a doctoral degree, and here's why, if you are. But we also understand there's a lot of fluidity in that first year. So what we do is we bring everybody in, everybody takes the same courses, same TA-ship consideration, teaching assistantship consideration, same funding opportunities, everything is the same for that first year. After the first semester, students, well, actually after the second semester, students take a big comprehensive exam over 5 of their first year courses. And at the end of that exam, they get a level of pass that either says you can continue into the PhD if you're interested in that route, or if you want a master's degree, you can have a master's level pass, continue in master's in the master's path. We do have some students who want a Master of Science degree, but get a PhD pass, and that's wonderful. They're welcome to finish out with a Master of Science degree. So because of that, our program in particular doesn't actually require that students choose between a master's and a PhD until the fall of their second year, which, if we're pretending of a starting date of fall 2022, would be fall 2023, which is the blue box that's outlined there. And then after that, we work with students to get them on the right path. So fall of 2023, if you're interested in a master's degree, you're putting together a resume, you're getting ready to apply for jobs in the spring, that sort of thing. If you're interested in the PhD, in fall of 2023, you're taking stats coursework to prepare you for that PhD, and also a little bit more math coursework to prepare you for that PhD. For us in particular, we do have all of our PhD students graduate with a master's degree. I think all but one since I've been DGS has chosen to do that, which just, because you've satisfied all the requirements, makes sense. So for us, that's what we tend to do, but that piece varies heavily program to program. So you really want to look at program websites and see what's typical. So we'll go to the next slide. So then I feel like I've just given you a lot of things to consider. So here are some examples of things that you might ask if you're looking at graduate programs. So a lot of these will go well beyond statistics and even STEM fields. One that I always enjoy getting is, what are some positions of your recent graduates? This is often on program websites as well, but it helps you distinguish if you want to go to academics, for instance, and be a faculty member. Well, if you look at a website and everybody has gone into industry for the last 8 years, then just know that that's a question you want to ask that program. How does your program prepare me if I want to go into academics? If you're not sure and you see a very big mix of industry and academic positions of recent graduates, then it's an indication that they've prepared people for both positions, and you can ask the DGS a question about opportunities to prepare for an academic versus industry position, or opportunities to distinguish how you want to go into academics versus industry versus government. Second one that's a good one to ask is, what do typical assistantship duties entail? We are about 3/4 teaching assistants and 1/4 research assistant positions just overall in our department. You heard Dr. Spears say a minute ago, they are 100% research assistant positions. So just knowing what you're getting into before you get there is helpful. If you are not interested in being in front of a group of students teaching, then you might not want to consider that program that only has teaching assistantship. So keep those things in mind as well. Do graduate students in your department receive desk space? This one is highly variable program to program and probably has honestly changed since COVID. But in statistics, there are programs where each student gets a desk in either a shared office or something like that. So it's just kind of nice as you're learning more about programs. For statistics and similar fields, computing resources, whether you have access to supercomputing resources, can be helpful. University of Kentucky has had fantastic resources for me and for my students to use. So that's another one that is either often buried on a website or not there that you can ask. Comprehensive exams, I mentioned the big exam after year one in our program in particular. In statistics, it's pretty common to have comp exams. In other fields, they have other types of exams, but asking about exams that are more like assimilation of information or checkpoints to proceed in your program can be helpful. Looks like desk space again, which I apologize for. It's not important enough to ask twice, but just good to know. I would replace that one with, does your department support students for travel to conferences? That's a really good one across fields. Gives you a sense of when students are presenting research, when they start research, are they traveling to network for opportunities, that sort of thing. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. All right, so that's what I have for a general overview, and I'm really happy to answer questions as well, but I'll pass it back to Haley now.
Great, thank you both so much. I just want to reiterate everything that they said. A really good point about the application requirements is that is on every program page. So be sure to look at your program of interest and look at those application requirements before you send any emails, because most of the time there's really great detailed instructions on each of those programs. And then before we close up today, I just have a few extra communication tips, and then a couple examples of some emails, just to give a really good look at what to send and what not to send whenever you're communicating with either us, the graduate school, or the director of graduate studies of your program of interest. So first, I just want to say, always proofread your emails before you send them. I know a lot of times students will be interested in a lot of different universities. So sometimes it can be easy to maybe copy and paste an email that you're interested in. But one that we've gotten is, we're University of Kentucky, but in the past we've gotten an email that's addressed to, say, the University of Colorado. So just to be on the lookout for little specific things like that before you send an email. And then, like everyone has already said today, know what program you're interested in before emailing. There's a lot of information on our website. We have, like I said, over 90 graduate programs. There's a lot of information there and on each page. So whenever you come to us, just make sure that you know what you're interested in, and then also briefly explain who you are. We're interested in you and your interests and your background. A lot of times we will just receive emails that say, "Hi, can you help me with admission?" And while I understand that, we want to know who you are. So, your background, any undergraduate experience you have, your research interests, it's really helpful for us just throughout the process to know who you are. And then finally, just be courteous and respectful, like both Dr. Thompson and Dr. Spear have said, and be patient for responses. We're all busy people. We receive a lot of emails. So like Dr. Spear said, wait at least a week before you email again. And at that point, somebody will definitely have gotten back to you. And then finally, I just have some examples of these emails that I specifically have received. So like I said, we like some background. We want to know who you are rather than just asking if we can admit you into a program. There's an application process, and we have also included that link in the chat. You can read about that on our website. And we also have the actual application on that same webpage. So just know that you can always apply. And then after you apply, if you have questions, reach out to us. And then also, we cannot evaluate any, certificates or anything that you send to us before you apply. That's not my job. I'm the graduate assistant. So just make sure that you apply, and then any questions you have afterwards, you can reach out to us, and I will drop my email in the chat before we leave here today. And then if your questions have anything to do with any specific programs, then we will refer you to the Director of Graduate Studies. So that is all I have, and now we can go into some Q&A.
Great, thank you, Haley, and thank you all of the participants for joining and for your brilliant questions that I can see here. So let's get this started with the first question. Would I gain the chance to network at the university and meet some potential employers? I'm not sure who that is to.
I can speak a little bit for statistics in particular. Because we have students who graduate with both master's degrees and doctoral degrees, one of the ways that our students network a lot is for some meetings within Kentucky. In particular, we have a Kentucky chapter of our big American Statistical Association. So it's a good way for our students to go, either on campus or an hour down the road and meet lots of people who do the people who do statistics within the state. We also have travel funding available, and I find that when students go to conferences and present their work, they make lots of contacts there in terms of networking for internships and full-time positions. So those are our two biggest avenues, but it's a really great question.
And I'll just follow up quickly. I agree with what Dr. Thompson said. I think UK does a really good job of providing students with opportunities to go to meetings, and those are so important. In fact, you can get travel awards through the graduate school for all the different programs as well. So that's where most of our students make the connections and set up potential internships or just to know other people that may lead to job opportunities.
Great, thank you so much. The next question, do you offer internships within the Kentucky area?
We do not offer a lot of internships within the Kentucky area. With our research assistantships, these are considered full-time positions. So a majority of our students carry out their research full-time, but we have had some situations where students have basically taken a summer, taken 3 or 4 months away from their graduate school, to have done an internship at a pharmaceutical company or at a biotech company, and then have come back. So it does happen, but at least for our program, it's not real common.
Perfect. And another question, could I work alongside my degree in Kentucky or on campus?
I'll take that. I think both Dr. Spear and Dr. Thompson mentioned assistantships. So assistantships are when you are working along with your program. There are 3 different types: teaching assistantships, research assistantships, and graduate assistantships. The teaching assistantships, you have a load of teaching along with your studies. And in a research assistantship, you would be doing some research either in a lab or in whatever your field may be, working with a professor. And in graduate assistantships, kind of like Haley here, our host today, she is working in an office environment, doing other different things, and gaining experience in that kind of work. These are all very different. For international students, you are restricted, though, in what amount of time you can be working, and that is 20 hours, and it can only be on campus. There are other jobs on campus that are different to assistantships. You cannot mix an assistantship, a full assistantship, with another job, because most assistantships are 20 hours if they are a full-time assistantship.
Thank you for that answer. And last remaining question, how long should my essay be when applying? Would it be a good idea to gain help before sending?
Again, I'll speak for our program. Dr. Thompson, it may have some, it might be a little different. I recommend for students that it should be 1 to 2 pages in length. If it's too long, then you really, you want to hit the high points, what's really important in your personal statement. And if it's too long, you probably have some high points and low points. So you want to really emphasize what really is important. So I think 1 to 2 pages should be a sufficient amount of space for you to let people know why you're interested in the program, a little bit about yourself. And again, as I said earlier, you really, really, really should have other people look at your statement, make sure that it's written well. And especially, if English is not your first language, it can really be important too. So definitely have other people look at it, not just your friends, but people that can give you honest evaluation. Sometimes your friends will tell you what they think you want to hear rather than what you really should hear.
Yes, exactly the same for statistics. I think for us, even, yes, that 1 to 2 pages framework is good. I think if you get much beyond that 1.5 pages or 2 pages for us, there's probably something in there that doesn't really need to be there. For our programs, when we're looking at those essays, we are also looking to see if your communication skills are going to put you in a position to be successful as a teaching assistant, interacting with students, answering questions. And also as a professional statistician, I mean, I don't meet too many statisticians who get to work by themselves in a room anymore or ever. So just that's one of the big things we're actually looking for throughout an application that's a little bit field specific. So definitely having someone else read it and give you advice and feedback is good. Also looking at program websites, that's often an FAQ. What do I include in my personal statement, or what should it be? Would give you some really good advice that's a little bit more program specific.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Are there any last words that maybe you want to give some advice to students before applying?
Research, prepare, and really do a thorough job when you're reaching out to faculty. Make sure there is a point to your inquiry and some background from which, they have any reference to reach back out to you. That's what I would say. Dr. Spear, Dr. Thompson?
Okay, amazing. Well, I think we've had a pretty informative session today. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you for attending, and thank you guys for the brilliant presentation. This will be sent to you on the recording as well. So if you haven't been able to take all of it in one go, you can always watch the recording back and have the information there for you at hand. All right, I think that's it for today. So I'm going to say goodbye to you all wherever you are in the world today. Goodbye.